They said I joke too much, that I don't fit the mold. But last time I checked, I'm the one still bold.
Welcome to another episode of the Heart and Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove, and I know I've been aloof for about 2 weeks. I had a lot of things going on, I had to go out of town, but we are back, and today we are going to be talking about faith and frustration, the real reason that your growth feels slow. And as we go into this topic, maybe you have just started a business, maybe it's a new ministry, maybe it's a new role, or even something simple like starting a diet or a workout plan. In the beginning, it can feel like you're pushing so hard, but nothing is happening. And it's so easy to misread that slow start and think that you're doing something wrong. But what we're going to talk about today, painfully and how I know personally, is that most things take sometimes even 3 times longer than we think that they will. Let's go into part 1, which is the slow start being normal. I think that we love the idea of the overnight success, but most of the time it's not overnight, it's over years. Let me say that again. It's years, not days, not weeks, not months, but years. Even if you think about your fitness goals, like something, I feel like that's a pretty low barrier of entry when we think of all the things that we're trying to aspire to do. It's still great, but it's very personal to oneself, right? It's not necessarily connected to all these people. And just for fitness goals, sometimes we think that maybe by month 3, I'll be able to see results. Sometimes we even think by our real expectation is by week 3. But the reality is you're not going to see actual, real tangible results until over a year time span, maybe even 2 years, sometimes up to 3 years before you're really in that state that you want to be in. And if we are expecting 3 weeks, maybe 3 months, but not 3 years, we're going to give up way too early. And it makes me think about when we started Gravetop Church. I honestly thought that it might take maybe 2 years to grow. Like statistically, it takes about 2 years for a ministry to really plant. And I thought if we stay faithful, build this community, love people well, that by year 2 or 3, 3 was like the grace, that it will start to take off. But you know what? It has been 7 years and it is just now starting to take off. It's just now taking roots, where there's many times where I was giving a sermon to 9 people. And by different standards, there's plenty of people that verbally told me that this was a failed church. If you're having just 9 people, that's a small group, not a church service. But as we were relentless in still showing up, we are now seeing the fruit of it. And if I'm honest, there's plenty of moments over this time of these 7 years where early on when I wanted to quit. After year 1, after year 2, after year 3, all the way up to year 6, it felt like all that effort was just disappearing into thin air. But what I couldn't see that then was that God was building this foundation, both in me and through me. And every quiet Sunday was strengthening something else in me as the leader, as the starter. And every slow week was testing my motives. It was refining my character. And it's helping me to really navigate what I cared about, of how I wanted to see this thing grow. And so let's talk about that, this foundation phase. And when you think about a building, the first thing you have to do is lay a foundation. You have to dig up all this dirt. You have to get real deep, and then you have to put bars. I'm not like a builder, but I imagine you put these bars and you set up this framework, and then you lay the concrete. And you think about how much work actually goes into that. This is a lot of work just to dig a hole. And let alone lay all this other framework out. And this foundation is this pivotal piece to the building. And when you lay that concrete, it really doesn't seem like you've done that much. You have to, even after the concrete dries, you look at it, it's like, okay, you don't say look at this beautiful foundation. Look at it, isn't it great? No, we want to see the house. We want to see the pretty architecture of the building. We don't care about the foundation. And it's that part that is the hardest and the least glorious, but it is setting the frame, the foundation is setting up what the building can stand on. And sometimes that hardest part is waiting for the cement to dry. And as we talk about this foundation phase, if you've ever built anything, whether it's a business, a brand, a fitness goal, even a relationship, you know that there's a season where all that work is just underground. No one sees it. You're laying that foundation, but you're also learning. You're figuring things out the hard way. And it's frustrating. It's like, even if it's just being a parent, like it's these early moments where you don't know what you're doing and you're trying. And because it feels like wasted effort when you're building this early phase part, it feels wasted, but it's not wasted. It's invested. You're investing into the future. You're investing into this thing that you're building. And for us, when our church finally began to grow, I realized this really powerful thing, and that is the only reason we can sustain this new season is because of the foundation that we've built in the old one. And the lessons learned in those empty years become the structure that holds everything together now. The patience, the consistency, the humility, the consistency, that's what made us capable of handling the weight of growth. And it's not just for our church, it's for all these other things that we've been a part of. And the fast track versions of success rarely last. You might see this initial peak and it fizzles out because they don't have these deep enough roots. And if God gave you everything that you wanted too soon, it might actually crush you instead of bless you. So now let's talk about the idea of numbers, a numbers game and a waiting game. I think that there's a level of like sales and business that go into this idea that can feel really spiritual at different times. A lot of spiritual people in starting the business, they'll use languages like, I've really felt like God is leading us to start this business. Like we're doing it the way that God inspired us. And there's a lot of you notice that even just with like a secular business, spiritual people often have these spiritual implications or inspirations to what they're doing. But I want to take a moment for us to understand some practical things when it comes to starting something new. And it comes down to the numbers game and the waiting game. The numbers game is simple math, okay? It's this idea that if you put X amount of effort, you are going to get X amount of results. And or maybe it should be like Y amount of results. What I mean by that is like, I'll relate it to when I was in sales. I might do 100 cold calls and make one sale. And those are almost like believable numbers to where I could expect that kind of result where it's statistics. I know that if I managed to, even when I was doing like residential sales, if I managed to knock on 100 doors, I'm bound to sell at least one person. And when you look at the reality of it being like that, that's called building your pipeline. It's not this idea of failure. It's recognizing statistics. You got to understand that it's knocking on 99 no's before you can knock on one yes. And so if you feel discouraged right now because you've only seen one result from 100 times, understand that you actually might be on track. You are on the track of learning your craft and learning what kind of numbers to expect. And that doesn't mean that you should give up. It might mean that you need to get innovative. If it took me this much to get 100 attempts, what is something that I can do, or a creative way in which I can multiply the amount of attempts with less effort? And that's where you use like technology, even AI and other types of media, to where you are able to give an exponential factor to this statistic that might not change. Okay, it's this numbers game. It's about how can I make this numbers game work for me. And now let's talk about the waiting game. This is not as fun because it's not about numbers. It's just about waiting. It just takes time. And it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because timing matters. There truly is like seasons. There's winters and summers. There's spring and fall. And certain doors won't open until until the right season arrives. And in those moments, it's like planting a seed where you can water them, you can nurture them, you can pray over them, but you can't rush them. The growth happens in its own timing. And it's hard because you don't really see what's happening underneath the soil, especially when it comes to like sales, and even more like complex sales, to where you are like working a lead, to where you're planting seeds of you're planting seeds of rapport. You're planting seeds of connections where they're not ready to really do business with you, or they're not ready to engage with you. But as you continue to plant these seeds, you are building the sustenance for it to be able to grow. And the key to all of this is that your responsibility is endurance. It's enduring through the numbers game. It's enduring through the waiting game. For you to keep planting, keep showing up, keep refining, keep being consistent, and the results will come. But only if you're still there when they do. And to think about, like, there's literally people who gave up on their sale and quit their job, went to something else, and then got a call back from someone that they tried to sell 2 years ago. And if they would have, it's like an idea, like you're going to stay for one sale. But like the idea is this, that there's literally people that go through that and they think, man, if I would have stayed, I would have made the sale. It was all about waiting for the right time. It was all about having enough seeds to plant. Be consistent. Your game is endurance. You're not going to see quick fixes, but if you endure, you're going to be able to see the fruit of your labor. And really within that time, that's a beautiful time to build your pipeline, to where you're not necessarily looking for results, but you're looking to fill your lead or your pipeline with as many possible sales or possible connections as you can. Now let's talk about the aspect of faith and frustration. Faith isn't just believing for miracles. It's believing that your ordinary effort still matters when nothing seems to be changing. And for me, in the last 7 years, I had to trust that there was an unseen work that was sacred. And that every sermon, every setup, every conversation was doing something invisible but eternal. Even times where, early on, when I think about the early years of even just going to recovery centers, the first year of doing a recovery center, there'd be times where literally no one would come to my group. And here I am doing this free service to where I am taking time out of my schedule, taking time away from my family, and I'm going here prepared to try to minister to people. And there'd be literal times where no one would show up. And in times where if people didn't show up, I would just take the time to pray out there. And then maybe one person would come out and I would talk to them. And I would do that. And don't get me wrong, there's other times where plenty of people would come. But I'm giving this idea that it really was moments where it seemed fruitless. But the way that I took it is that even though I'm not seeing something right now, I'm building something within myself. And I stayed consistent, and I looked at it, this is an opportunity for me to work on my messages, to work on how I speak, to work on how I connect, to work on how I pray. And it was just a moment where I still looked at it as an opportunity, even though I didn't see the fruit in front of me. And because of that, it's what led me to craft the book that I most recently released, From Death to Life. And now I have recovery centers reaching out to me, asking me to speak to their clients to where it's they're making it mandatory to go to my group. This is a complete turnaround from that first year. And it's realizing that faith doesn't always look like this beautiful, glorious thing. It's not this beautiful trophy. Sometimes it looks like quietly showing up again when you'd rather not. And the tension is that there's frustration, but understanding that frustration doesn't mean that you lack faith. It doesn't mean that you don't believe in yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't believe in your thing. Frustration simply proves that you care. It's proving that you're invested and that you have expectations. And expectations are good. You want to be able to see something beautiful. You have hope. And the goal isn't to necessarily eliminate these frustrations. It's to learn how to hold on to faith within those frustrations. Now that leads us to this last part, which is if you don't quit. I want to be as clear as possible that if you don't give up, you will see results. Period. You might not see them on your timeline or on your within the initial expectation. You might not even see them in the way that you expected, but you might not see them the way you imagine, but you will see fruits if you keep sowing faithfully, if you stay consistent, because results are not random. They're cumulative. And every time that you choose consistency over comfort, you're attacking this thing with momentum. You're stacking onto the momentum, and you're going to have a snowball effect. And every time you choose to learn instead of quit, you're compounding strength within yourself to cause that snowball effect to be better and better. And so it's not wasted time, it's preparation time. And think about all the people who stopped right before that breakthrough. They might have been one phone call away. There was one post away. There's one act away from being able to see this breakthrough that they wanted. And if you just don't let delay convince you to walk away from what you were called to build. The same way that I was saying that there's people who feel really spiritually connected to this thing that they're trying to build. Don't walk away from it. Believe. Allow yourself to really believe. If you believe it was God that told you to do this, then really hold on to that in this moment of waiting and then in this season of delay. And I really believe that when we are consistent with these things, if we're faithful with these things, within time, again, maybe it's 3 times than what we expected, but within time, you will see results, and it will be a snowball of results after that. So wherever you are right now, starting something new, rebuilding something old, or maybe you're just trying to stay consistent, remember this: slow doesn't mean stuck. Growth that lasts always starts slow. And it's okay if it's taking longer than you planned. That delay is part of your development. And if you can learn to endure this quiet season, you'll have the strength to sustain a loud one. Faith is what keeps your hands steady while you wait, and frustration is what keeps your heart real through it all. And together they shape you into this person who can actually handle the success that you've been praying for. So don't quit. Keep the faith. Keep on your hustle, because if you stay planted, you will see this harvest. So all that being said, thank you for listening today to the Heart and Hustle podcast. Have a great life.
Then tell me why you still watch every move I take. You call me phony, nah, I'm just free. And if you still doubt me, go by my book.